L- Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Congressional Briefing on Vietnam Human Rights Act. My name is Kung Nguyen. I'm a member of the Buddhist Youth Organizational Leadership Council.
My name is Quỳnh Phang, member of the Buddhist Youth Organization National Leadership Council.
We will be the moderator for the program today. Welcome to all of you. Here is the agenda for the day. Welcome remark by Dr. Quỳnh Lam Ngo, introductions of guests by Dr. Vinh Nguyen, a memorial of the most venerable Thích Quảng Độ, testimony from various religious leaders. We have followed by remark from member of U.S. Congress and representative from U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. Follow that will be a panel discussion facilitated by Ms. Linh Nguyen. And we encourage attendees to enter your questions in the chat room, and we will address them during the panel discussion. Will follow that will be a closing remark by Mr. Wook Phang, Secretary General, BYO National Leadership Council, and then our session will adjourn then.
Now to begin, we would like to invite Dr. Quỳnh Lam Ngo, Acting Chair, Buddhist Youth Organization, National Leadership Council, to give the welcome remarks. Please welcome Dr. Ngo. Xin mời chị.
Thank you, Quỳnh. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for this congressional briefing on Vietnam Human Rights Act. We members and representatives of the Buddhist Youth Organization are greatly honored to have your presence and participation in today's briefing. We are an educational organization founded in 1951 in Vietnam with the goals to educate youth from age 7 to 18 to become good citizens based on the Buddha teachings. The leaders in our organization had gone through training and learned Buddhism extensively. As we all know, the current Vietnamese authorities show very little effort to improve human rights and many other basic freedoms for its people. Vietnam remains one of the few countries that would not allow democracy for its people, which impedes peace globally and particularly in the Southeast Asia region. Today, we have testimonies from various oppressed groups who will speak up about the many violations of basic human rights, particularly freedom of religion or belief. The current Vietnamese regime also prohibits the freedom of expression, the right to assemble, the right to own properties, the right for legal protection under the laws, and many more, all of which together make freedom of religion or belief possible. Whereas human rights are the essence of governance, without human rights, there is no political legitimacy for the ruling Vietnam Communist Party. We have invited many U.S. senators and representatives and other agencies to give us an in-depth view of a bill for human rights for Vietnam, currently in the House and possibly in the Senate. We need to have such a bill to become law, a legal framework to improve human rights and democracy in Vietnam, one of the few countries who is still under the dictatorship of communism. More than an act of compassion for the Vietnamese people, the pursuit of human rights for Vietnam is closely connected to the peace and security of the region. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome all of you.
Cảm ơn chị. Thank you, Dr. Ngo, for your welcome remarks. Next, we turn over to Dr. Vinh Nguyen, Assistant Secretary General, BYO National Leadership Council, will present the guests and officials who are joining today's briefing. Welcome, Dr. Nguyen.
Ladies and gentlemen, my great honor to introduce the following organization, official, and media participating in this essential congressional briefing on Vietnam Human Rights Act. We would like to welcome the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam, Sangha of the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam, Representative Committee of the popular blog of Cao Dai Church, Buddhist Church of America, Vietnam Human Rights Day Organization, Minh Van Foundation, Vietnam Democracy Center, Alliance for Independence and Democracy of Vietnam, Vietnamese American for Human Rights, League of Vietnamese American Voters, ADVN, Antelope Valley Vietnamese Association, United Council of Vietnamese Homeland and Overseas, Vietnam Human Rights Network, Vietnamese American Community of Tacoma, Peace, South Vietnamese Veteran Association of Washington, PPSOS, Federation of Vietnamese American Community of the USA, Block 8406 International, Long Tho Thiên Ton Temple, United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, Vietnamese Association of Houston and vicinity, the Catholic University of America, Buddhist Solidarity Association, Vietnamese American Community of USA, Vietnamese American Republican in Georgia, Vietnamese Community of Houston, Club of Free Journalists, Vietnam FORB Roundtable, Jubilee Campaign, Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, Montague's Stand for Justice Overseas, Office of Interfaith Council of Vietnam, Vietnam American Voters Association, Vietnamese American Community of Utah, Spallies and Parcels of and World Peace Protection Section Europe, Buddhist Youth Organization, Office of the Speaker of the House, Office of Congresswoman Stephanie Bice, Office of Congressman Lou Correa, Office of Congresswoman Jennifer Weston, Office of Congresswoman Diana Titus, Office of Congressman Ron Kai, Office of Congressman Michael Guest, Office of Congressman Colin Alfred, Office of Congresswoman Colin Porteous, Office of Congressman Steve Cohen, Office of Congressman Jason Mann, Office of Senator Raphael Warnock, Office of Senator Tom Copper, Office of Senator Pat Toomey, Office of Senator Chuck Grassley, Office of Senator Mark Kelly, Office of Senator Rick Scott, Office of Senator Mark Warner, Office of Delegate Michael St. Nicholas, Office of Congresswoman Young Kim, Office of Congressman Christopher Smith, Office of Congressman Alan Lowenthal, and the media, Voice of America, Vietnamese Public Television, SPTN, and Radio Free Asia. So we also have very special guest speakers whose bio will be provided in more detail later on. With that, we thank you all and wish you have a very successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. At this point, we would like to a memoriam of the most venerable Thích Quảng Do. The most venerable Thích Quảng Do passed away at the age of 92 in Saigon, Vietnam on February 22, 2020. He was the fifth patriarch of the United Buddhist Church of Vietnam, formerly in Vietnamese as Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam Thống nhất. He was a tireless advocate for religious freedom and human rights for Vietnam. He died a prisoner of conscience, having been in prison or detention for more than 40 years. In this briefing, we thought that it is fitting to have a moment of remembrance of our supreme, fearless leader who have fought for religious freedom of Vietnam.
After watching that memoriam, let us all be reminded that when we honor the past, there's the guiding lights for our futures. Next would be the testimonials from various religious leaders. We are honored to introduce our first speaker, the Most Venerable Thích Huyền Việt, who is the Vice Chair of the Dharma Institute, the administrative branch of the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam. He is also the chair of the second office of the Dharma Institute and the president of the Vietnamese American Unified Buddhist Church. Please welcome the Most Venerable Thích Huyền Việt. Chúng con kính mời thầy.
Kính bạch thầy đang mute.
Good morning from Texas. Dear distinguished guests, I would like to thank the Buddhist Youth Organization for holding this very important conference. Also, I would like to welcome my venerable colleagues who will provide testimonies on the lack of religious freedom and human rights in Vietnam. Many of you have endured a lot. Thank you for your courage. I also welcome the honorable senators and representatives. I am especially grateful for Congressman Chris Smith for championing H.R. 3001 Vietnam Human Rights Act, and many of your colleagues from both sides of the aisles who sponsor this bill. On the morning of May 27, 2021, the first day of the important Buddhist summer retreat, uniformed police of the Dong Nai provincial authorities came to Ba La Mạc Temple to demand that the Senior Most Venerable Thích Nhật Bang report to the provincial authorities office and retract the New Year's letter that he had issued on the occasion of the Lunar New Year. The Most Venerable Thích Nhật Bang is the president of the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam, the Dharma Institute. The administrative branch of the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam, he himself was a prisoner of the conscience for 17 years. They believe that his wishes for the Lunar New Year were the counter-revolutionary access to the temple has been retreated. The temple has limited supplies and not been allowed to repair for years. On December 5th, 2020, Dong Nai's provincial authorities and its police prevented the Most Venerable Thích Nhật Bang from leaving for where to preside over the annual Great Prayers ceremony. As there was no isolation order, this was the infringement on the freedom of religion and his rights. After 3 hours of the interrogation, the authorities locked down his Paramita temple and blocked him from leaving. Many Buddhist youth organizations in Thừa Thiên Huế province was prohibited by the authorities and attending the same ceremony. The Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam has been disallowed from giving arms to those in need, as it is considered an illegal entities by the authorities. Giving arms to the poor and the needy is the important aspect of our religious practice. The Constitution of Vietnam gives a false promise of religious freedom. However, in practice, the regime imposes a range of restrictions restricting religious practice, such as registration requirement, control boards, and surveillance, with the purpose to eradicate non-state sponsored religious organization and its followers. The current regime tears down much needed multilateral civil society activities and tramples on the human rights. To maintain a sustainable relationship with such totalitarian regime, the U.S. must do on that we can to support the 4 pillars present in the RH 3001 Vietnam Human Rights Act. They were the religious freedom, human rights, civil societies, and the sanctions like global Magnitsky Act for the religious violations. Vietnam should be designated as the country of particular concern. Our work here is the accumulation of the wholesome compassion toward our human family. With the compassion and wisdom of our enlightened path, we can save humanity and our planet. When we have multilateral civil society activities around the world, we can find the solutions toward of how best to save each other and world we live in. Let's start here today with our prayer that our honorable senators and representatives will pass the Vietnam Human Rights Act in law. I respectfully plead to the honorable senators to introduce the Vietnam Human Rights Act in the Senate. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Most Venerable Thich Huyen Vic, for providing this landscape of what's really happening on the ground in Vietnam. Your statement demonstrates there's a need for HR 3001. Chúng con xin cảm ơn Thầy. At this point, I want to introduce the Most Venerable Thich Thien Minh, who was born in 1955 in Bac Lieu and was assigned to 2 life sentences in Vietnam by the Vietnamese authority in 1979 and 1986 for fighting for freedom of religion, human rights, democracy, and legal right for the United Buddhist Church of Vietnam. After 26 years of exile, 2 life sentences, and the Most Venerable Thich Thien Minh is considered one of the longest serving prisoners of conscience in Vietnam. He entered prison at the age of 25 in 1979 and was released at the age of 51 in 2005. We invite the most venerable Thích Thiện Minh, founder, Vietnam Political and Religious Prisoner Friendship Association to speak. Chúng con xin mời Hòa Thượng có đôi lời với quan khách.
Dạ, kính bạch hòa thượng đang mute ạ. Kính bạch hòa thượng mở mic.
Xin kính chào ban điều hành cùng quý đại biểu, quý quan khách tham dự buổi hội thảo vận động dự luật nhân quyền cho Việt Nam. Kính thưa quý vị, trước hết tôi xin tán thán quý huynh trưởng gia đình Phật tử Việt Nam
Dạ, chúng con kính cảm ơn Hòa Thượng. Thank you, Most Venerable Thích Thiện Minh. Our next testimonial is from Reverend Nguyễn Văn Lý. Reverend Thaddeus Nguyễn Văn Lý is a Roman Catholic priest and dissident involved in many pro-democracy movements, for which he was imprisoned for almost 15 years. For his ongoing imprisonment and continuous nonviolent protests, Amnesty International adopted Father Lý in December 1983 as a prisoner of conscience. Most recently, his support for the Block 8406 manifesto has led to his sentence on March 30th, 2007 for an additional 8 years in prison. He can't be with us today, so we would like to welcome Dr. Giáp Phúc Đạt, who will read a statement from the Reverend Nguyễn Văn Lý. Please welcome Dr. Giáp.
Good morning, everyone. We talk about Thiêng An Monastery. Since the end of 2015, the Vietnam government has sent police to demolish the statue of Christ 3 times, burn the pie hills of the monastery many times, and prevented guests from visiting the monastery. Several times in 2017 and 2018, the police beat up the monk of the monastery to the point of passing out. Abbot Anton Nguyễn Văn Đức, the priest who provided spiritual support for the monks who fought to preserve the land for the monastery, had to go to France to take care of the responsibility of the order in 2018. Is now not allowed to return to Vietnam by the government. Currently, the situation at the monastery is still very tense. The Tam Thoa Parish Church on Nguyễn Du Street, Đông Hới, Quang Binh Province was built in 1887 on a land area of 10,000 square meters of Đông Hai Parish, formerly Hồ Lũy, established in 1631. In 1954, some of the Tam Thoa parishioners have migrated to the south. In the period between 1964 and 1972, Tam Thoa Church was severely damaged by the war, leaving only the bell tower. After 1975, Quang Binh Parish and the Tam Thoa Associates had set up a temporary church to offer prayers and wanted to repair the old church. But the local Quang Binh Communist government demolished this temporary church, and on February the 26th, 1997, with the decision number 143, QD-UB confiscated this bell tower as a war relic and divided this piece of 10,000 meters square of the parish to the local communist official. From the beginning of 2018 and throughout 2019, the Nghệ An Communist Authority held a charge against Father Anthony Đăng Hiếu Nam, pastor of the My Khánh Parish, and persecuted members of My Khánh Parish, Vĩnh Hòa Parish, Khánh Thành Commune, Yên Thành District, Bảo Nhâm Religious District of the Vinh Diocese, Nghệ An Province. Every time the parish organized a prayer ceremony for justice and peace, prisoner of conscience, the ruling Communist Party authorized the police, thugs, and the red flag groups to surround, curse, throw stones and filth at the church and at the laity, and destroy believer houses. When the Catholic Church protests against Formosa, the cybersecurity law, the special economic zone law, the communist government mobilized hundreds of plainclothes police, thousands of red flag thugs surrounded and terrorized the parish, blocked the road, went online to curse and threatened to kill, put 8 gas posts around the parish to intimidate. They have organized denunciation and demanded to kill Father Nam. Thu Thiem Church. From 2015, especially since the beginning of 2018, the Saigon Authority have been pressuring to encroach, auction, and confiscate the land of Tu Thiem Parish and the monastery of the Lovers of the Cross at Tu Thiem, founded in 1840 in District 2, Saigon, with 3 schools. Now, the Communist Party media to prepare public opinion for the clearance of Catholic facility in Tu Thiem, forced the church and the monastery to be relocated by blocking access to the congregation, cutting off electricity and water, according to the 1996 map by the Saigon Authority with the plan to build Tu Thiem new urban area. The church and the monastery were completely outside the plan, but the Saigon Communist Authority announced that this map was lost and has not been found. There are insufficient reasons to force the religious facilities to be relocated. The new urban construction project is only for economic purposes, not related to the security and national defense. Take too lightly cultural and religious heritage and target economic interest at own cost to auction 9 lots of lands, 72,000 square meters, and turn Tu Thiem into a new trade and service center. Loc Hưng Parish in Ward 6, Tân Bình District, Saigon, was founded in 1954 with 5,000 people and 650 families. Of these, 600 people of more than 150 poor families, Loc Hưng are cultivating 48,000 square meters of land. On 3 days, the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th of January 2019, Saigon authorities sent bulldozers and the police to destroy Catholic altars, flatten 200 houses of more than 150 families, and of 18 disabled veterans of the Republic of South Vietnam on the eve of the Lunar New Year of the Pig. Throughout 2019, the Saigon Communist Authority has not resolved the injustice there for the 600 poor Loc Hưng people who lost their homes. Then, in early December 2019, the local Saigon Communist Authority again prevented people from cultivating the land. On December 2019, the police destroyed the nativity scenes of Loc Hưng Parish for the second time, smashed the statue of Our Lady, and arrested 3 people who protested this evil doing. 600 poor people of Loc Hưng suffered this fate on the eve of New Year 2020. All in all, these are clear cases of human rights violation. The Social Republic of Vietnam not only takes away its people's right to worship, it also takes away the people's right to exist. It takes away the church properties without the due process. Church, school, monastery, convent, land, even cemetery. Even the dead can be left alone to rest in peace. With this, I conclude Father Nguyễn Văn Lý report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yap, for delivering a statement on behalf of Reverend Nguyễn Văn Lý. At this time, now we have the honor to invite the Venerable Thích Vĩnh Phước, who is the abbot of Phước Bộ Temple, Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu, and a representative of the Sangha of the United Buddhist Church of Vietnam, and a member of the Vietnamese Interreligious Council. Chúng con xin mời Thượng tọa có lời chào ngắn với quan khách.
Xin thượng tọa mở mic lên ạ. Mic của thượng tọa chưa on ạ. Kính thưa thượng tọa chưa mở mic lên ạ.
Dạ, cảm ơn Thượng tọa Thích Vinh Phước. Xin mời Thượng tọa mở máy để chào quan khách, có đôi lời chào quan khách. Dạ, không có nghe được, chúng con xin cảm ơn Thượng tọa đã có đôi lời cho cái buổi hội thảo hôm nay. Xin mời chị Quỳnh.
Thank you, Venerable Thích Vĩnh Phước. Our next speaker will be Subdignitary Hứa Phi, who is the founder and subdignitary of the Representative Committee of the Popular Bloc of Cao Đài Church in 1996. Along with leaders of others independent religions, he co-founded and is now a co-chair of the Interfaith Council of Vietnam. In 2016, he co-founded and is now a co-chair of the United Council of Vietnamese in Homeland and Overseas. Welcome, Subdignitary. Xin mời chánh trị sự ạ.
Dạ, cảm ơn diễn đàn. Hôm nay ngày 17 tháng 11 năm 2021, kính thưa Chính phủ Hoa Kỳ, Bộ Ngoại giao, quý cơ quan công quyền quốc tế về tự do tôn giáo, nhân quyền ở Liên Hiệp Quốc. Tôi, Chánh sự Hứa Phi, trưởng ban đại diện khối nhân sanh Đạo Có Đài, đồng chủ tịch Hội đồng Liên tôn Việt Nam, đồng chủ tịch Hội đồng Liên kết Quốc nội và Hải ngoại. Kính thưa quý vị, con người sống ở đâu, bất cứ một cái quốc gia nào, dầu tư bản hay cộng sản hay độc tài, đều có quyền sống trong hòa bình, hạnh phúc, theo nguyên tắc đạo lý ở đời. Cần phải tuân theo quy định của bản tuyên ngôn quốc tế nhân quyền năm 1948. Và tất cả quý vị là những chiến sĩ hòa bình của nhân loại. Điều này cần phải phát huy rộng rãi trên thế giới. Chúng tôi sẽ nói ở Việt Nam có tự do tôn giáo, nhân quyền có được thực thi hay không? Xin thưa với quý vị là không có. Mà còn bị đàn áp một cách tinh vi, chỉ có những người trong cuộc mới biết. Chẳng hạn như các tôn giáo chánh truyền ở Việt Nam. Cộng sản Việt Nam đã đưa những đảng viên trá hình vào làm chức sắc các tôn giáo quốc dân. Nhà cầm quyền hỗ trợ xây dựng lên những cơ sở tôn giáo như chùa, nhà thờ, thánh thất đẹp rộng lớn để lừa gạt các tín đồ của các tôn giáo và dư luận thế giới. Là ở Việt Nam có tự do tôn giáo, nhân quyền, nhưng kế hoạch của Cộng sản là dùng những tổ chức này duy trì cho chế độ Cộng sản ở Việt Nam qua sự chỉ thị của Ban Tôn giáo Chính phủ. Dẫn chứng cụ thể là trong năm 2021, sau khi nhà cầm quyền Cộng sản Việt Nam lấy hết những cơ sở tôn giáo chánh truyền ở những địa phương trong nước, đưa cho Hội đồng trưởng quản Cao Đài Tây Ninh là một tổ chức. Cái tổ chức này do Đảng Cộng sản Việt Nam lập nên năm 1979. Sau khi Cộng sản Bắc Việt chiếm miền Nam Cộng Hòa, tổ chức này thực hiện theo quy định của nhà cầm quyền Cộng sản Việt Nam, chứ không có đại diện cho tôn giáo chính truyền. Vì vậy, tín đồ chân truyền của Đạo Cao Đài Tòa Thánh Tây Ninh gần đây ở các địa phương cùng nhau thành lập thiên bàn thờ Đức Chí Tôn tại Tư Gia thì bị an ninh và chính quyền địa phương đàn áp công khai, và những gia đình của những tín đồ đó bị cô lập và tước đoạt quyền tự do công cộng. Như ở Thánh thất Tuy An, tỉnh Bình Định, Phú Yên, sau khi nhà cầm quyền cộng sản dùng xe cơ giới sang bằng phá chùa, đồng đạo cao đài tòa Thánh Tây Ninh không có chỗ để sinh hoạt đạo sự. Vào tháng 4 năm 2021, đồng đạo mượn nhà của chánh lịch sự Nguyễn Hiệp và chánh lịch sự Đoàn Thị Thân làm văn phòng của tộc đạo để có chỗ cho nhân sanh sinh hoạt, thì bị chính quyền địa phương đàn áp thô bạo. Ở Tây Ninh và những địa phương trong nước, về việc tang tế sự lễ nghi cho người quá cố, đồng đạo đứng cúng viếng tiễn đưa người chết thì bị phạt. Công an giao thông lập chốt chặn đường, phạt xe mô tô vài trăm ngàn, xe ô tô bị phạt đến 7-8 triệu đồng tiền Việt Nam, như ở Dương Minh Châu, Tiền Giang, ở Gò Công, vân vân. Trên đây là một số việc trong nhiều việc mà trách nhiệm của tôi là trưởng ban đại diện khối nhân sanh đạo cao đài tòa Thánh Tây Ninh nêu rõ lên cho công luận biết. Và ở đây chúng tôi đề nghị quý vị có trách nhiệm. Chúng tôi là những chức sắc và tín đồ chân truyền của đạo cao đài tòa Thánh Tây Ninh do Đức Chí Tôn khai mở năm 1926. Vậy thì tính pháp lý của đạo cao đài tòa Thánh Tây Ninh đối với quốc tế thì chúng tôi là những người chủ thể. Sau năm 1975, Cộng sản Bắc Việt chiếm miền Nam Cộng Hòa, rồi họ cải tạo các tôn giáo chánh truyền ở Việt Nam đi theo hướng cộng sản quốc tế. Về việc này không đúng theo luật công bình thiên đạo. Nếu nghiêng về sức mạnh và vật chất thì thế giới chưa được hòa bình, thịnh vượng trong đạo đức. Kính chào quý vị, tôi chánh lịch sử Hứa Phi ở Việt Nam xin nêu lên một số vấn đề. Xin cảm ơn diễn đàn và kính chào thính kiến.
Xin cảm ơn chánh tri sự Hứa Phi. Thank you. Now we have the honor to invite Pastor Vàng Chí Minh. It's from the monk ethnic community and the clergy of the Protestant Church. Due to his family religious belief, his father was imprisoned many times and killed by the Vietnamese communists. Pastor Van became a Protestant pastor of the Northern Vietnam sections. He was imprisoned many times for his religious choice. Welcome, Pastor Vàng. Xin mời mục sư Vàng.
Pastor Vang, please unmute your mic. Sorry for the technicalities. Pastor Vang's internet is in and out. I will go ahead and read his statement on his behalf. I am Vang Ji Ming, a U.S. citizen and currently living in Minnesota. I was born in northern Vietnam of Hmong ethnicity. I support the bill for the Vietnam Human Rights Act because I've been a victim of the Vietnamese authorities since 1963. In Vietnam, there are about 1 million Hmong people living in the northern region bordering China. From 1963 until 1978, the Vietnamese regime began a process of allowing the Vietnamese people to illegally acquire land belonging to the Hmong and destroying the local Hmong traditions. Our local dignitaries lost their positions, which were taken over by the Vietnamese people. We lost about 5 million kilometers square of cultivated land. From 1990 until now, the Vietnamese regime continues to oppress our people. Because we become Protestants. In 2011, in the case of Mường Né, I'm sorry, I'm being interrupted because of about 13,000 Hmong left their villages to hide in the southern provinces or escaped to nearby countries such as China, Laos, Myanmar, and Thailand. All of our chapels were destroyed. I myself was in prison from February the 2nd, 1990 to June the 10th, 1990. I was able to escape to China on June 12, 1990. Afterward, I hid in other cities in northern Vietnam. I was recaptured from May 8, 1996 until November 2004. In 2005, a close friend of mine told me that I have to leave Vietnam, otherwise I would die at the hands of the Vietnamese communists. So on January the 2nd, 2005, I escaped to Thailand. I applied for refugee status with the United States. On March the 20th, 2006, my family and I were accepted as refugees, and finally I immigrated to the United States on November the 18th, 2005. Currently, the Vietnamese regime has not stopped its policy of oppression against our ethnic minority. The Hmong, who currently live in the northern mountainous area, are not free to practice their religious activities. They are forced to follow the Vietnamese Evangelical Church, controlled by the Vietnamese regime, who they migrated to the Central Highlands and are forced to follow the Vietnamese Church, also controlled by the Vietnamese regime. There are about 10,000 people who had their ID cards taken away in the last 20 years. Not until BPSOS, other human rights groups, and the United States Department of State denounced their illegal actions did 100 people get their IDs back, but only in Linh Trong Village and Dam Rong Village, Ham Dong Province. In Nam Vat, one village, Nam Ban Commune, Nam Mun District, Lai Châu Province, a village near the border of China, there were 130 people who refused citizenship because they married Chinese Hmong. This situation started in 1974 until now. Since March 2001, with the help of BPSOS, the Vietnamese regime started to give them citizenship status. Currently in China, Myanmar, Laos, and other southwestern Asian countries, there are about 2,000 Hmong living in the poor conditions while waiting for the refugee status. They could not return to Vietnam for fear of prosecution and imprisonment without a trial. Due to many reasons above, I strongly support the bill for Vietnam human rights. I appeal to the U.S. Congress to pass this law to help our ethnic minorities to get justice. Thank you very much.
Mời mục sư có đôi lời ạ. Yes, thank you, Pastor Van. Mục sư Van có thể nói được không ạ?
Let's move on.
Thank you, Pastor Van. Our next speaker is Mr. Trần Văn Thường, a leader of Vietnamese Buddhist Youth Organization in Vietnam, member of the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam since 2003, founder of the Pháp Biên Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu Province, original founder and adult leader of the Khánh Biên Buddhist Youth Organization. Please welcome Mr. Trần Văn Thường. Xin mời anh Thường ạ.
Xin cảm ơn Huynh trưởng Trần Văn Thường. Thank you, leader. Thank you to our religious leader for your testimony today. Your testimony demonstrates the need for human rights and religious freedom in Vietnam. It takes courage and sacrifice to make the statement today, so thank you all for your courage today. At this moment, and ladies and gentlemen, reporter, we are just a few minutes behind, but at this point we'll move on to the congressional remark. So we invite the Honorable Congressman Alan Lowenthal. He's serving as the fourth term in the U.S. House of Representatives, represent the California 47th District, which encompasses Little Saigon. He is the co-chair of the Vietnam Caucus. Mr. Phong Lee, Senior Director, Orange County Director, will read the statement from Congressman's behalf. Mr. Phong Lee, welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Phong. I work for Congressman Lowenthal. Actually, I have a video from the congressman. I just need a few more minutes for it to be ready. And if you could make me a presenter, then that way I can play the video. So if there's another speaker, would you mind please let that speaker go ahead in front of me, and then I'll have that video shortly after, if that's okay.
Certainly we'll make that arrangement. We'll move on to the next one.
Thank you. In waiting with us, we are honored to invite the Honorable Anurima Bhagava, Commissioner, U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. Commissioner Bhagava earned her law degree from Columbia Law School and graduated magna cum laude from Harvard College. She promotes dignity and justice through narrative and storytelling. Please welcome Honorable Commissioner. Are you still muted? Oh, anh Hưng, someone unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now? Great, thank you. I'm so grateful to be able to join you today. My name is Anurima Bhargava, and I'm representing the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, or USCIRF, on which I serve as a commissioner and recently chaired. Thank you for organizing this conference and for inviting USCIRF to discuss freedom of religion and belief in Vietnam. For those of you who are unfamiliar with USCIRF, it is an independent, bipartisan U.S. government body that was created by the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998, or IRFA. Our mandate is to monitor religious freedom worldwide using international standards, and to make policy recommendations to the US President, Secretary of State, and Congress. Each year, USCIRF publishes an annual report describing religious freedom conditions in countries considered to be amongst the worst violators of religious freedom in the world. Under IRFA, the State Department is required to designate as a country of particular concern any country with a government that engages in or tolerates systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom. USCIRF has continually recommended Vietnam's designation as a CPC for nearly 20 years, including in our most recent 2021 annual report, even though the State Department removed Vietnam from the CPC list 15 years ago. We continue to make this recommendation because we remain concerned that systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom still occur in Vietnam, despite modest and incremental improvements over the years. We are concerned about the government's ongoing persecution of ethnic minority Hmong and Montagnard Christians in Vietnam's northern and central highlands. Local authorities, as you have already discussed, subject members of these vulnerable groups to beatings, detention, imprisonment, torture, and forced renunciation of faith. As a form of retaliation for their refusal to renounce their faith, authorities have denied household registration documents and ID cards that are necessary for living a normal life in Vietnam. We also remain concerned about the restrictive law on religion and belief and how it's being targeted against unregistered religious groups, such as the Independent Wahao, Buddhist, Unified Buddhists, Cao Dai followers, Catholics, and many, many others. USCIRF also continues to pay attention to the plight of religious prisoners of conscience in Vietnam. Last September, USCIRF celebrated the release of Pastor Adao, who USCIRF Commissioner James Carr adopted through our Religious Prisoners of Conscience program. And I continue to advocate for the release of Nguyen Bac Tuen, a Wahao Buddhist human rights lawyer who worked to assist prisoners of conscience and defend the rights of religious communities. Before the COVID pandemic, we traveled to Vietnam and we met with NGOs, faith communities, and government officials to discuss and raise concerns about religious freedom conditions in Vietnam. Our visit at the time further reinforced our CPC recommendation. USCIRF is grateful that many members of Congress have expressed similar concerns regarding the Vietnam government's religious freedom violations. In May of this year, Congressman Chris Smith introduced H.R. 3001, the Vietnam Human Rights Act, with strong bipartisan support. The legislation reiterated that the promotion and protection of religious freedom remains an integral part of U.S. foreign policy and requires the U.S. government to prioritize religious freedom in its bilateral relations with Vietnam. Furthermore, in line with USCIRF recommendations, the legislation urges the administration to designate Vietnam as a country of particular concern for its systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom, and to employ sanctions and other appropriate tools to ensure that independent religious groups can operate freely and without restriction in Vietnam. Indeed, since the normalization of relations between the two countries in 1995, the United States' principled engagement with Vietnam on religious freedom has led to concrete improvements. Today, as the United States deepens its relations with Vietnam, including a potential upgrade from the existing comprehensive partnership to a strategic partnership, we must continue to exert pressure on the Vietnamese government to improve religious freedom conditions in the country. For its part, USCIRF will continue to engage with the Vietnamese government and emphasize that it's in its best interest to respect freedom of religion or belief, as research has shown that countries that respect religious freedom tend to be more stable and economically prosperous than those that do not. USCIRF will also continue to tirelessly advocate for those who are in prison for their faith in Vietnam, and for those who are at this point unable to practice their religion freely. Thank you again for inviting me to address you today at this important conference.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your work and your leadership. We look forward to collaborating and working with you. Thank you for your time. At this point, we're just going to circle back to Mr. Phong, Lý Phong. Mr. Lý Phong, you ready?
Yes, yes. Let me share my screen real quick. Can you see Congressman Lowenthal now on your screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, let me play the video then.
I do not have sound.
You do not have sound? Okay, give me 1 second.
This is the Hưng. There's a place when you share, there's a place where you turn on include computer sound. Under you click that share button, there's the top line has include computer sound. Click on that.
Okay, give me 1 second. I got it. I got it. Let me do it again. Sorry. Let me try it again.
Hello, everyone. This is Congressman Alan Lowenthal, and I'm honored to address you during this conference on the deteriorating human rights and religious freedom in Vietnam. As the co-chair of the Congressional Caucus on Vietnam, I am proud to be an original co-sponsor of H.R. 3001, the Vietnam Human Rights Act, introduced by my colleague and fellow co-chair of the caucus, Congressman Chris Smith. H.R. 3001 would allow the United States to sanction Vietnamese officials and others who are complicit in the systematic violations of internationally recognized human rights, including particularly severe violations of religious freedom. I'm glad to see bipartisan support for this legislation from the House of Representatives, and I hope to see the same in the Senate, so that the Congress can send a clear and unified message to the government of Vietnam that we stand for human rights and religious freedom. As you know, while the world is battling the COVID pandemic, the Communist government of Vietnam took advantage of the situation and carried out arrests and crackdowns against dissidents, independent journalists, activists in Vietnam, including the prominent blogger and journalist Pham Dong Tran. I've spoken up many times on these arrests, and most recently, I joined my colleagues in the House of Representatives in sending a letter to President Biden asking the United States to raise the case of Pham Dong Tran with the government of Vietnam and demand for her release. Recently, the Minister of Public Security of Vietnam, Tho Lam, generated tremendous public outrage when video footage on social media appeared showing the communist leader that he ate a steak covered in 24-karat gold flakes at a restaurant run by the social media star and restaurateur known as Salt Bay, which could cost more than $1,000 at taxpayers' expense. This is an insult to the people of Vietnam who are suffering from the devastating impacts of COVID. Furthermore, the public minister, Tho Lam, is one of the worst human rights violators in Vietnam and should be sanctioned by the U.S. government using the Global Magnitsky Act. I believe that the United States wants a closer relationship with Vietnam in an effort to counter China's aggressions in the region, but we should not ignore the deteriorating human rights condition in the country, and it is now time for the United States to hold Vietnam accountable. I look forward to continuing to work with all Vietnamese American organizations and with my colleagues in Congress to advocate for human rights and religious freedom in Vietnam, and to hold Vietnamese officials who blatantly violate the basic fundamental freedoms of Vietnamese citizens, particularly dissidents, bloggers, journalists, and independent religious leaders. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Thank you, Representative Lowenthal, and thank you, Mr. Lee Pham, for being here today. We'll move on at this point. I have the honor to introduce and invite the Honorable Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa. Senator Grassley was first elected to Iowa State Legislature in 1958, and 16 years later, he was elected to serve at the U.S. House of Representatives in 1974. In 1980, Senator Grassley was elected to the U.S. Senate. He is currently the ranking member of Senate Judicial Committee and serves on the Senate Finance Committee. Senate Budget Committee, and Senate Agriculture Committee and Joint Committee on Taxation. Senator Grassley, it's an honor and welcome. Please take it away, sir.
Thank you for the honor of giving a few short remarks at your conference. I appreciate it very, very much. And before I give those remarks, I'd like to express the close relationship that Iowa has with Vietnamese people, because we had a Governor Ray 40-some years ago who knew about the problems of people fleeing Vietnam. And he made a trip to Geneva, I think in the neighborhood of 79, 80, or 81. I don't remember the exact years. And Governor Ray said to the world that we ought to help the Vietnamese people find a safe place. And he said that Iowa would take its fair share of the people leaving Vietnam at that particular time. And we have taken that fair share, and they have turned out to be outstanding citizens and contributing greatly to the people of Iowa, to the civic leadership of Iowa, to the economy of Iowa, and all sorts of adjectives you can give about their contribution. So now to the point that you asked me to speak to. As a Christian, I'm always sad to hear about people who are persecuted for their faith. Each and every person is endowed with natural rights to practice their religion free from government persecution. Too often we in America that have that freedom take it for granted. So it's always important for us not only to reflect on our own freedom and thank God for that, but it's also a reminder that around the world that other people don't have that same. And Vietnam is one of these places. Religious freedom is part of our identity as Americans, so it's natural advancing international religious freedom, and that we should play a very strong role in that as a country, and it needs to be a prominent part of our foreign policy. Vietnam has been identified as a country of particular concern. It's been so identified by the independent United States Commission on International Religious Freedom for its poor record on religious freedom. It's sad for me to say that it has not been so designated by our own State Department, and that's something we need to press the State Department to do. The work that your organization and your conference does to draw attention to this issue is very, very important for the reason that of the people of Vietnam, but also, as I previously said, for the United States to realize what great freedoms we have in this country that too often take for granted. So by drawing attention to this, I want to thank you for doing that. As a United States Senator, it is important to be reminded of the situation in Vietnam as I consider legislation related to our relationships with that country. So once again, referring to my own faith as a Christian, it is good to be reminded of the need to pray for people in Vietnam, both those being persecuted for their faith and for the persecutors that they see the heirs of their ways. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you, Senator Grassley, and we look forward to your leadership and helping move this to the finish line, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
At this point, we invite the Honorable Senator John Cornyn of Texas. Senator John Cornyn sat on the Senate Finance, Intelligence, and Judicial Committee. Senator Cornyn was chosen by his college to serve as a Republican whip, the second highest ranking position in the Senate Republican Conference. So at this point, Senator Cornyn will provide a statement in video. Thank you for your statement, Senator Cornyn, and we look forward to your support in the Senate as well. Ms. Gwen Pham.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn. Next, we would like to invite the Honorable Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rogers, 5th Congressional District, Washington. The Congresswoman Rogers currently serves as the Republican leader on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Welcome, Congresswoman Rogers.
Thank you, Congresswoman Roger, for your statement today. At this point, we invite Congressman Tom Tiffany, 7th Congressional District of Wisconsin. Congressman Tiffany serves on the Committee of Natural Resources and Committee on Judiciary. Congressman also sent a video message, so at this point, we invite the playing of the video. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Tiffany. Next, we'd like to invite the Honorable Congressman Tom Emmer, 6th Congressional District of Minnesota. Congress Emmer serves on the House Committee on Financial Services, Cybersecurity Caucus, Internet Caucus, and the Congressional Cuba Working Group. He also sent the remark by videotape.
Thank you, Congressman Emmer, for your statement today, and we look forward to your support. At this point, we just also receive statement of support and recognition of today's briefing from the Office of Senator Dianne Feinstein of California. Office of Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa, Office of Congresswoman Susan Wild, 7th Congressional District, Pennsylvania, Office of Congressman Dan Crenshaw, 2nd District, Texas. Due to time constraint, we won't be reading those statements, but we'll make it available online. So thank you, Senator. Thank you, Representative and Commissioner, for your time and remark today. We also like to thank you, Representative Senator, who are unable to attend, but have sent representative on their behalf. We appreciate your work and attention to this matter. We look forward to enlisting you as a co-sponsor if you haven't already on HR 3001, and we look forward working with you to the final patches and sign this into law. So let us know how we can be part of the group moving this forward. Ms. Gwen.
Yes, thank you.
Now we would like to turn over the honor of introducing Ms. Linh Nguyen, Chair of Thiện Luật BYO Regional Leadership Council, who will facilitate the panel discussion to further understand HR 3001. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Linh Nguyen.
Thank you, moderators. Thank you, Mr. Cường Nguyen and Ms. Quỳnh Phan. We will get back with you for the closing remarks. Please feel free to enter in your questions into the Q&A box. Now I'd like to recognize the Honorable Christopher Smith of New Jersey for introducing the HR 3001 Vietnam Human Rights Act and the following offices in attendance which have co-sponsored the bill. The Office of Congresswoman Stephanie Bice, Congressman Lou Correa, Congresswoman Dina Titus, Congressman Colin Aldred, Congresswoman Carolyn Boudreaux, Congressman Alan Lowenthal. Thus far, we have 28 to 29 co-sponsors. We hope that you will continue to co-sponsor the bill. We have also heard from the courageous prisoners of conscience and the victims of violence for their exercising religious freedom in Vietnam's totalitarian system. We have two former prisoners of conscience in the audience with us, Mr. Michael Phương Minh Nguyen and Mr. Nguyễn Văn Hải, better known by his pen name Điếu Cày. In September 2022, in a one-day trial, Nguyễn Văn Hải received a harsh sentence of 12 years in imprisonment for disseminating anti-state information and materials. The Economist described the session as looking very much like an old-fashioned Soviet-style show trial. On the 17th of April, the U.S. State Department spokeswoman called Vietnam to release Nguyễn Văn Hải and other bloggers, stating that the three had done nothing more than exercising their universally recognized rights to freedom of expression. He was awarded the International Press Freedom Award for the New York-based Committee to Protect Journalists. In 2019, the communist regime handed Michael Nguyen 12 years in prison for activities overthrowing the People's Administration. He is the founder and editor-in-chief of the Thế Hệ magazine, founding member and chairman of Vietnam Entrepreneur Association in Southern California. Because of its ongoing egregious violation, USERF and Commissioner Bhagava have annually recommended that Vietnam should be designated as a country of particular concern since 2002. Next, we will introduce our distinguished panelists for our Q&A session. We have Mr. Hung Phan, the chairman of the board of directors, Vietnam Human Rights May 11th Organization, president of Vietnam Human Rights Act, HR 3001 Committee, advisor and former president of the board of executives of the Federation of Vietnamese American Communities in the USA, founder and advisor of the Republic of Vietnam Next Generation. We also have Pero Tazi, Republican Staff Director for the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission. In addition to serving as Senior Foreign Policy Advisor and Counsel to Representative Chris Smith of New Jersey. He previously held the position of Staff Director and Counsel of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Africa, Global Health, Global Human Rights, and International Organizations. He received his JD from Fordham University School of Law and his BA from Columbia University. Welcome, Mr. Tazi and Mr. Fan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ling.
Thank you for being here with us. And for the sake of time, let's dive into the questions. The first question will be for Mr. Fan. What different strategy will your committee approach the Congress to pass the bill at this time? And what's being done so far at the House and Senate level and its progress?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nguyen. So for the past 20 years, the previous version of legislation have passed the House for 3 occasions with overwhelming bipartisan support. I have stalled in the Senate. So for this time, okay, for our committee, try to advocate for the HR 3001 in the House. Okay, in the meantime, I would like to, okay, so far we have 28 co-sponsors for HR 2001 in the House. And in the meantime, okay, in the Senate, we would like some senators from the both parties introduce a similar Vietnam Human Rights Act in the Senate to accompany the HR 3001. And up to this point, you have 139 organizations across the nation have so far endorsed this bill to be passed in the Congress. And lately, last week, the 9th of November, today is 17 last week, and the bill was referred to the subcommittee on immigration and citizenship. And it is a good point for us to move forward, and hopefully we can do the bills and pass in the Congress.
Thank you. So our next question is for Mr. Tazi. So recently the HR 3001 was referred to the Subcommittee on Immigration and Citizenship. What's the next step for the bill in the House, and how can we help?
Well, I think there's also going to be a referral to the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I think you should do what you are doing, which is contacting offices. I want to say one thing, because I think we've encountered some resistance, whereas in the past we haven't. And as I've talked to other offices, I think Mr. Lowenthal, when he was speaking, he put his finger on it. And there is a perception among some people in Congress that Vietnam can be a counter to China. And I think this belief or hope is overstated. And here's, I think, where you can also be helpful. I think the reason why this is overstated is, one, because Vietnam's government has, they have this 3-no policy, this essentially neutrality. They say that they're not going to use one country against another. And I think they are not an ally against Communist China. Communist Vietnam is not an ally against Communist Vietnam. Take them at their word. They say that. That's the first issue. I think you've also seen a lot of Chinese foreign direct investment and influence in Vietnam too, which is another reason why Vietnam is not going to be the counter against China that some things. In 2011, roughly $700 million of Chinese investment in Vietnam. You go to 2018, that jumped to 2.4 billion. So there is a big Chinese economic presence in Vietnam. But here is something that I think I really could use your help. I think that despite the public posturing, and the Vietnamese people have a long history of combating Chinese aggression, including, as we know, 1979, and certainly the Vietnamese people are very wary of China. But my sense is that just as China tries to use influence in American officials and American businesses, they also use their influence and corrupt Vietnamese government officials. And what I need, or what we need, is from you more concrete evidence of that, because I think in order to push this bill this time, we have to overcome this resistance that sees China or Vietnam as an ally against communist China. And we always have to remember that we're talking about two communist governments, both of whom are very repressive. And if we really want to counter China, the way to do that is to make Vietnam more democratic, more respectful of freedom. And that's why the Vietnam Human Rights Act is so important, because it really does promote, whether it's religious freedom, whether it's labor rights, or whether it's internet freedom and freedom of the press. It really promotes that, and that's what's important. That's what's going to make Vietnam, to transform it into a true friend. So that's what I think. But any help that you can give on that, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you for that, and we definitely will try our best. I know that we're very motivated to have this bill pass into law, and its focus on the human rights and religious freedom. And we were just thinking, like, what, you know, at this point, we probably need a companion bill in the Senate. So what can we do to make that happen?
Well, I think you had a number of Senate offices. It was quite impressive that participated. I think it's important that you do have a bipartisan, you know, you have one person, and it could be one of the senators, whether Senator Grassley or Cornyn, you know, that's expressed support, Senator Feinstein there. But it's important, I think, that you introduce it with bipartisan support in the Senate, just as we did in the House. And that's the great thing, I think, about the Vietnam Human Rights Act. We had an even number of Democrats. We had mentioned Congressman Lowenthal, Lofgren, and Correa on the Democratic side. We had Congressman Chris Smith, who introduced it, along with Congresswoman Young Kim and Michelle Steele. I think that sense of balance, getting your Republican and Democratic senators to show, because this is a bipartisan issue. This is a concern for human rights in Vietnam, and the wonderful thing about the Vietnamese diaspora here is that you're such a presence in American life. I live in Northern Virginia, and we enjoy going to the Eden Center there. Good eating at the Eden Center, among other things. And there are so many, I think, Vietnamese who are present in America and have really contributed to the fabric of America. What you should do is, petition your Congress. Talk to your congressman. Use that influence, and don't And you are. I mean, the groups have been great. You have been very good about approaching congressional offices. But one thing I would say is, be prepared to counter that, I think, misperception that Vietnam can be an ally against China, and as specific as you can get, I think that would help.
I think you have it on the nail there, where both Vietnam and China are a communist country, and they see each other as a partnership. If not, Vietnam is subservient to China and not can't really counter China. Well, thank you, Mr. Tazi, and thank you, Mr. Phan, for your insights. And we probably need to end it here, and we hope to see you in the near future. So I want to just a couple of thoughts here. To have a good faith bilateral relationship with a totalitarian regime like Vietnam, we must support religious freedom, human rights, civil societies, and sanctions like the Global Magnitsky Act. We hope that today's discussion will propel you to write to your senators asking them to adopt the Human Rights Act and pass it into law. Thank you for the lively discussion. I would now give the floor back to the moderators.
Thank you, Ms. Linh Nguyen, and our panelists for the lively and in-depth discussion. We are more informed on the importance of this work, and we will put our efforts in collaborating to help push the legislation to the finish line. Lastly, we would like to invite Mr. Wook Van, Secretary General, BYO National Leadership Council, to give the closing statement remark. Please welcome Mr. Van.
Thanks, Ms. Fan. Hello, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited to say that we have a successful conference on the Vietnam Human Rights Act, HR 3001, today. Thank you for your time and participation. Your presence so that we all share the same values of human rights, and we have the same concerns about the Vietnamese Communist government's suppressions of human rights and religious freedom. You encourage us to continue advancing human rights for Vietnamese people in Vietnam. This is a long, challenging, and important journey. We have a long way to go. The briefing today is just a start. The U.S. must support the 4 pillars articulated in the HR 3001 Vietnam Human Rights Act. They are religious freedom, human rights, civil society, and sanctions like the Global Magnitsky Act. We respectfully urge our honorable senator to introduce the Vietnam Human Rights Act in the Senate, and that both houses to pass the Vietnam Human Rights Act into law. President Franklin Roosevelt once said, "Freedom means the supremacy of human rights everywhere." Our support goes to those who struggle to gain those rights or keep them. Our strength is our unity of purpose. To that high concept, there can be no end save victory. In that unity of purpose, we ask that you contact your representatives and senators and ask them to support the Vietnam Human Rights Act, HR 3001. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you, Mr. Fan. Thank you. This concludes our congressional briefing on human rights in Vietnam. Thank you to our special guest testimonial and congressional remark today. Panelists, thank you for your insight, and we hope to work with you too. Thank you to our attendees for being patient today with the technology. I think we did the best that we could. We encourage you to take action, audience, by visiting our website at yaohoipgvntn.org website for updates. Finally, we ask each and every one of you to contact your congressional representative and senator and encourage them to enroll as a co-sponsor of this legislation and help push this to the finish line. We need each and every one of you as part of this important legislation. Please feel free to contact any of us for more information, and thank you. Have a great day. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for staying with us this long.